It's off the terminal. Welcome to the show, people, and I am Sandreva Phillips. So, I've always been interested in cybersecurity professionals, whether they are grey hats, black hats, or white hats. And when I had the opportunity to sit down and chat with one of such people, I just could not let it pass. I'm here today with Delight. He's an information security officer at PiggyVest, and I'm super excited to be talking to him. So, I hope you are as well. So, let's get right into it. Hello, how are you doing today?
Hi, Cedrico. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's nice to finally meet you. It feels like we've been chatting so much over the phone. So it's nice to meet you. I want to know how you entered or how you got into InfoSec. You know, where did you start from? Did you know? Because I saw that you did urban and regional, or was it what?
History and international relations.
International. I knew it was just something unrelated to security. Yeah. So how did it start?
So originally, I think like 2017, when I was in uni, I think it was like second year. I had a friend who was like 3 years ahead of me. So he graduated, came back to school back then, like OAU. Then he mentioned something about cloud security. I was like, oh, cloud is the future. I actually want to take a look at it. But because I was in school, like, and you're focused on different things and you're thinking about how you're going to survive, you tend to not focus on those things. So I think that I know that after I finished uni, I delved into marketing a bit, did a bit of video editing, did a bit of cinematography as well. Then at some point I was freelancing, so because of inconsistency of like funds, I had to like think back. Then I just realized, I had this conversation a while back. Can I actually like take a look at it? So I think that my motivation was mainly money, because I was looking for money, if I'm being honest. So I was like, I needed like a different entrance, like a different means of making like money. So I'm like, different tech careers. My cousin was pushing me to like take a look at tech careers. I'm like, security looks very interesting because of cloud conversations I had earlier. So then I took a look at it and I started doing like courses, started doing my research. I went to a tech hub at the time when I first started out. It wasn't really helpful because it was like information overload. But then I had to like start relearning and starting to like get to know things for myself and understand what the process is like. So I think that was my major motivation.
What year was that? What year did you actually start learning?
So what year did I start learning? I think it was 2021, thereabouts.
2021. And where have you worked since then till now?
So I did a bit of, before I got like before I moved to Lagos, I was based in Ibadan, so I was doing a bit of freelancing here and there. Then I moved to Lagos because freelancing gives you like a different feel from working an actual 9-to-5 job sometimes, because when you're starting your career, you want to have hands-on grounded experience.
True.
So I did a bit of consulting for about 2 years. Then I moved to like more my current role is at PiggyVest.
So what does an information security officer do?
So for the information security officer role, I'll say it varies, but holistically, it pretty much means that you are responsible for, depending on what the organogram looks like, but typically it means that you're responsible for managing like the information security program or cybersecurity program within an organization. So that falls between strategy, governance, risk, compliance, the people, process, and the technology sometimes. So it varies based on like the structure of the organization and also what the organogram looks like.
Yeah, so it's internal. It's not, you don't have any business with securing the users that you cater to.
That's still part of it, because by securing the organization internally, you're also like in the, let's say for example fintech space, you're also securing the products and the user, the data of the organization as well. So it varies as well.
So all right, okay, that's nice. What do you do on a day-to-day now? Like how do you spend your weekday?
Typically in the morning, it varies. There's no like pattern. I'm not really a big fan of pattern. I like a little spontaneity. So but sometimes I like to start my day with like long walks. So like it keeps me sharp and my mind gets to wander. Then when I get back, typically I like to maybe jump on tasks that I probably was not able to complete the day before. So then I try to jump on tasks or maybe do a bit of personal work or personal research. Sometimes I listen to podcasts, sometimes cybersecurity related podcasts. But I think my favorite part of the day is when I have to have my morning coffee and watch like a car show. So like I'm a fan of cars, so I like to take like maybe 15 to 20 minutes to take coffee, then watch a car show, 15-20 minutes, then from there jump straight into maybe meeting, then itemizing maybe tasks I have to do during the day, then straight up from calls from different meetings, maybe stakeholders to my colleagues, then jumping straight into work. Then I typically like to take breaks and maybe play games in the middle. So like during like lunch break, 30 minutes. Depends on if I have like a game that I'm trying to like finish off. Like I started out to finish up. I actually do like action related games, adventure related games. Then that's like little break. Then I jump back to work. Then at the end of the day, sometimes go to the gym, sometimes just maybe just hang out with my guys and have conversations. So that's what like the flow is like for me.
Okay, you know why I asked the initial question about the roles of an information security officer? Because unlike when you are a software engineer, you have like tasks that you have to do in a day. It's a bit tangible to see, you know, the result of what you do in a day. How does it relate to infosec officer?
So depending on where the person sits, first things first, and also depending on where the program is at the cybersecurity program within the organization. Sometimes your role might be around strategy. So say, for example, you have to create a strategy for an information security strategy for the organization that aligns with the business goals and business strategy as well. Sometimes you might be around creating policies, putting processes in place. From those policies and processes, then it now translates to maybe awareness. So if you are trying to create a culture, a security culture within the organization, you might have to do training sometimes, come up with training programs, security awarenesses. It might also translate to maybe putting controls in place. So say, for example, you might have to get tools, you might have to get I did create like a risk program for sometimes. It just varies. So you also might have to be linked to maybe monitoring the environment, trying to see if there are no attacks, or there are no attack vectors, assessing like your threat landscape within the organization. So it does vary.
So you're saying that you have a lot of things to do each day. Like you have to, when you come, let's say you don't have like a specific task per se in a day, you go in and you do monitoring and logging, you check the logs to see if there are any attacks. That's what you do like on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, so it varies as well. So because the program also has to do with compliance sometimes. So depending on who your regulatory bodies are or the third parties you're dealing with, sometimes you also have to provide information for like a license renewal or certificate renewal, or you're trying to implement a program within the organization. So it does vary. Sometimes it can be more technical, sometimes it could be more granular, like governance related or compliance or risk related. So it does vary.
So what problem are you currently focused on solving now?
So I think that's one major problem I'm looking to solve in general is there's been like an advent of like adoption of AI within like the tech space or like the general space. So I also think that there's a part of side of AI we're not taking a look at. As much as there's mass adoption, we also should be looking at the downside of AI as well. So how can we be protecting our organization against like AI related attacks? So now there's automation and attacks are being automated. Also, we also need to have AI tools that are also like up to tax or up to par when it comes to like protecting us against these attacks. But also the downside is now understanding where your data is being kept, what your data is being used for, because there's machine learning involved, understanding who gets to see what, because there's a data protection related clause when it comes or side of cybersecurity as well, that you have to protect the data of users. So sometimes and users doesn't necessarily have to be like your customers, it could also be like the employees as well. So to understand behaviors and patterns within the organization, you also need to be thinking of how can you protect these people that are supposed to protect from AI related attacks or malfunctions within like the AI space.
So now, because you mentioned AI, because adoption on AI, almost everybody is adopting AI. I haven't seen PiggyVest do that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't use PiggyVest as much as some others. But in cases where they are trying to, like, developers or engineers or the business as a whole is trying to adopt like a new tool or platform, does it ever happen where they come to you because of course you're an infosec officer and then you have to tell them no? How do you collaborate with teams across the company to ensure that you're not always the no person in the business?
So there has to, for me, I usually think of what's the business justification of the business impacts of whatever it is we're trying to implement. So for one, if because I'm in fintech space, a lot of things have to do with like financial impacts for the organization. So what are the pros and cons? So evaluating the risk, the likelihood of impacts of this, likelihood and impacts of these particular threats, what the threats are, possible vulnerabilities. So I think that first of all, before we even go to like the threats, likelihood and impacts, you first even have to identify the assets you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So say for example, trying to find something. So say for example, AI adoption. So, like the popular ones we have, like note takers and transcribers and things like that. You are granting them access to your meetings. In these meetings, you're discussing critical things that affect the organization. If this information gets out, so say for example to a competition, what's the business impact for your organization? So those are like the possible like risks that you have to identify. And to now answer the question about trying to avoid being a no person, sometimes also business impacts, like I mentioned, or business justification is also very important. You have to also evaluate the risk. Is it critical to the organization? Does it have a high impact? Does it have a low impact? Is it a type of risk that the organization can accept? So say for example, if a organization loses 10,000 naira, let's say an organization that's probably valued at a unicorn, for example, $1 billion. If the organization loses 10,000 naira, the impact is very minimal to them. But if it's now getting to a point where I'm losing $10 million, and now I start to like ask questions, why? How can I prevent this? So identify the risk, then creating like a treatment plan, or if it's possible that these risks, for example, can be managed. Can I accept it, first of all? If I can't accept it, can I provide like a solution, a mitigation in that time and space to help like manage it? If the impact is now more than what I can take, then I can now say, okay, what next can I do to like manage this risk? Do I have to put this process on hold, or can I provide like a simple solution in the time being that makes sure that my job still gets done, or I have to put it on hold, find a fix before then now push it out. So it's basically just evaluating the risk.
So because I'm trying to understand the process now, they come to you, you have to evaluate all the things you mentioned.
Correct.
And then how do you also tell them as you're evaluating that you explain to them the reason for the risks and mitigation, and do you also explain those things to them as well before making it? Do you jointly make a decision together, or do you have to make that decision and then they have to live with it?
So most times it's more of like you do like security personnel, like information security personnel, evaluates the risk like on their own side of things. Then they now provide like a report that says, okay, this is what we've seen, this is the risks that probably affect this particular asset or this process that we're trying to implement. We provide the report to the team that is responsible, and management sometimes, depending on how critical it is. So the team and management are now involved to say, okay, is this a risk we're willing to accept? If the team say, okay, it's a risk we're willing to accept, and manager signs off, then yes, we can go. So it's not like set in stone. Most times management still has to sign off, or the teams also have to like agree. But like for the evaluation, for documentation purposes as well, you have to show that you have actually presented them with the possible risks, or that might affect the products or whatever you're trying to do. Then they are now you now advise them on next steps. Should we pause? Should we do this? Then they now decide on their own end. So
that's nice. So now I want to talk about the balance of public and private, because you are working as an infosec officer at a very reputable company, well-known company. And how do you decide what kind of information is okay to put out there that cannot be used to increase your attack surface, and what kind of information to keep absolutely private?
I mean, that's a good question. Yeah. So me personally, and I'm maybe going to answer the question based on myself and my colleagues within the
Yeah.
space. I've noticed that a lot of people that work within this space are not very, even the ones that are public facing, that like are out there. They typically, I like to call this. There's this mafia theory I have that guys that used to be in the mafia usually tell you a lot of things, and they tell you absolutely nothing. So you might know a lot of things
Yeah.
about them, but you can't. It's not tangible information that you can use against them. So because we work in a very sensitive space,
Yeah.
we tend to like, or I tend to like try to put out very minimal personal information that could be used. So we know that for the attack space or the attack vectors or the threat landscape, if they gain access to an insider, it could be used to exploit the organization. So as much as possible, I try to put minimal personal information about myself, because our space is very
What kind of information is termed minimal?
so minimal in the sense like
Your name, your age.
okay, so yeah, my name, my age is, I mean, my name, my age is like public information
Yeah.
in that sense. That's minimal. It doesn't really have an impact on the organization. So if we're now taking a step forward, we're saying maybe say where I live, or locations where I'm visiting, like cafes that I'm regular at. So those type of personal information could be somewhat critical or like sensitive,
Yeah.
because if that could be, say for example, a cafe where I usually frequent at or where I work, if I'm connecting to the public Wi-Fi in that cafe,
Yeah.
if somebody creates a man in the middle attack and I'm usually frequent at that cafe, it could also have an effect on the organization. So it's very informations like that tend to be like on the low. So yeah.
Okay. So how often do you trade off between security risks and user experience? Because I know there are times, if you already mentioned the risks and mitigation, if they can accept it or not, how often do you trade off between the two?
How often? I know it's a very frequent conversation in this space.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's and it's like a conversation between security engineers and the product team and the
Yeah.
engineering team. There's always that clash where we need to do this, and the product and engineering team are like, no, we actually have to push this out, and security team is like, no, we can't do this because of the effects. So how often do I have to trade off? It's a constant battle, to be honest, because risk keep like finding out new risks every day,
Yeah.
day on day. Threat landscape is increasing or is growing every day, so you have to always determine what the fine line is for you. So what is your risk acceptance as an organization? I think that is like the
Like the risk threshold.
yeah, my risk rate threshold. So
Yeah.
if I say, for example, my organization, like I gave before, my organization is valued as $1 billion. If the risk is below 10,000, like 10,000 naira, I can say, okay, I can accept the risk. But if the risk now grows more than, say, if my threshold is $10 million, if it grows beyond that, then I know that I have to stop and pause, then
Yeah.
evaluate on next
Okay.
steps.
Okay. And do you think cybersecurity in fintech is different from other domains? And if they are, how?
Is it? I'll say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that cybersecurity in fintech is fast-paced, and because you are dealing with people's money and people's data, and because of regulatory bodies that require you to verify the people that you're dealing with, so you have a lot of sensitive data you're dealing with.
Yes.
Other sectors also do have that, but because of like very key factor, which is people's money and their finance, you have to be on your feet. It's somewhat similar to the banking industry, but if you're not taking into like a, say, health tech, private PII, personal identifiable information, is very important to them, so they prioritize protecting that, as opposed to, say, the banking and fintech space, which prioritize protecting the data of the users, and also like the customers' money, which is very important, because once the data breach happens, you're losing data, you're losing reputation, you're losing money as well. So it's yes and no. No, because there are also like other underlying factors like data protection as well. If you lose data, you lose reputation, you can
Yeah.
get lawsuits, you're losing money.
True.
It also leads to that. So yeah, yes and no, but I think that they are all similar across board.
They are similar, but I guess it's a bit more critical for fintech.
Yes, because you're dealing
Because
with
there are
people's money.
lots of regulatory bodies when it comes to fintech, and you
Yeah.
have to comply with all of those standards. Now, we already talked about trade-offs of between user experiences and security risks. There are also features that users assume are cumbersome, right? But are actually saving them from a lot of risks. What are some of those common features that users seem to?
So I'll say the most common one that's coming to mind is KYC.
Yeah.
So yes, a lot of users don't like KYC. Me personally, sometimes
Yeah, I don't like.
I don't like KYC because sometimes it's a lot of you're asking me for a lot of data. You're asking me for my
Yeah.
pictures, where do I stay, my NEPA bill and things like
But
that.
how does that relate to security, though?
So it does relate to security because you have to verify the users that you have. You want to be sure that you are onboarding actual users, not bots or.
That's to you. That's for the company, though. But how is it beneficial for the user?
Okay. How is it beneficial for the user?
Yes.
Good question. So I think that is also beneficial for the user because if there's a scenario where I own a startup, I have 10,000 users, and 2,000 of those users are maybe fake users, and say a 10% of those 2,000, say 200 users are scammers. If they exploit my products or exploit my platform and they steal funds, if they steal, say for example, my company is worth $1 million and they steal 500K, the other say 9,800 users money is also included in that valuation. Yeah, it could also have an effect on those users because they are losing money. If I'm not able to, say fintech, I'm not able to provide you your money when you need it. For example, you're saving with me or you're investing with me. If you want to liquidate your assets and I don't have the money to give, it becomes a problem for you.
Yeah.
So it might not affect security directly or fraud directly, but if an attack happens and a company loses money and see reputation as well, if it gets to the news that XYZ company.
So let me give an example of what I'm saying, what I'm talking about.
Okay.
For instance, multi-factor authentication
Correct.
is not exactly to safeguard the company, it's to safeguard the
the user.
user's info,
Correct.
right? But we tend to be angry about it, especially when you mandate it.
Okay.
Every user is mandated.
Yeah.
That's like a common one. Are there like other features as well that are like that? Or maybe you have to you set your login page to never remember your username and password, stuff like that. Are there other features as well?
Okay, so something similar to multi-factor authenticator that I mentioned is say password length or password strength.
Yeah.
So a lot of people do reuse like their passwords.
Yes, a lot.
Some people have just one password
For
across board.
everything.
So for for companies that now mandate and say, okay, you must have at least your password
Its
string has its characters,
cards.
which is outdated typically, but
Yes.
because a lot of companies know that most people push back if you ask them to use 12 character length.
Yeah.
So they now stick to 8 character length, which is outdated. We should not be using that. But I mean, so things like that and password length is very important because the smaller or like the less complex your passwords are, the more
the easier it is
easier for it to crack. So usually they typically now advise that. I think now the new thing is what I read is they advise you to make use of passphrase. So say for example, say Sandreva is a girl that lives in Ikoyi. Is longer. It's not a dictionary word. It's easier. It takes them longer to crack the password, and it's easier for you to also remember as well. So a feature like that is also like something similar to Tweve, like you mentioned.
Yeah, because I was also thinking about transferring money, which is because since fintech again is one of is one of the most attacked industries, and when you need to transfer sometimes, especially when you're going over a certain limit, maybe like 500k, they would ask you to send you an OTP, and I'm like, I don't have network. Just let me transfer my money.
Correct.
And it's always just very frustrating. But then I understand that it's necessary. It's necessary. And I think that's why all these cloud security providers, they are very, very particular about their security. You just have to do that.
Correct.
Which I think is very, very interesting. So what are the biggest risks that you think software engineers and software architects should avoid very at the beginning when they are building or designing a product?
Oh, sorry. I'm laughing because it's a very common conversation, especially if you're dealing with engineers. One is software development lifecycle. Is most times overlooked because everybody is like, oh, I have an idea. I probably drop like a go-to-market. Before I even get to go-to-market, so I do like a architecture that shows the flow of things. Some people don't do architecture. Some people design the products, then now go back to draw the architecture. But I think that from the requirements gathering phase, when you're about to develop a product, you should also include security. Like, so what tools am I making use of? How do I want to be testing these products? How do I want to be validating that I'm building a secure product? Secure coding, what is like my go-to language for developing the product? How can I be imputing security? How can I be comparing my code against like OWASP top 10? Okay, or like say infusing or considering OWASP top 10 in the development of my code. So OWASP top 10 is a list of top 10 vulnerabilities that affects code
in past 4 years, right?
Yeah. So I'm trying to ensure that SQL injection is going to affect my code. Imputes, I'm implementing impute validation for all the sides of my code. Yeah. I'm also considering protecting my data in transit, my data at rest, where am I storing them?
Yeah.
Also, API security as well. As if I'm going to be integrating with third-party APIs, how secure are those APIs? How am I testing those APIs to ensure that even if I am safe on my own end, a unsecure like API can also introduce vulnerabilities into my code or my product. So those different things are like some of the things that I think that developers and engineers should also consider.
It seems like a lot, really, because for me, I don't like doing the whole theoretical thing. I just really just want to dive in. And
engineers don't like documentation.
I might do documentation after. That's fine, but because I will feel better once the product is out, and then I can focus on documentation. But having to document before, I'm going to lose motivation, because when you prolong it like that, it's just going to lose motivation. It's a lot, but I understand the necessity. But what I try to do is when I code, maybe a particular aspect of a product, I always like to go back and try and find ways to break into it, so that at least I'm working on the modeling while I have implemented that particular feature. That's what I found that works for me. So what are the biggest risks in securities in fintech, especially in Nigeria, that you think or you're worried that people are not so concerned about?
I mean, that's a good question. So the biggest one is, I think that we in Nigeria, we do take cybersecurity as a compliance need, as opposed to like a security need.
We do that.
So say because CBN is like the most popular regulatory body, most organizations will only employ like a security person because CBN mandates that if you don't comply with this person or don't fill this role, might most likely hold back your license. And because I need my license to actually make money, they then just fill the role. And most times, because they are filling the role because of compliance, a lot of these people don't get like management support to actually like carry out security, like put in like control. So sometimes there's a lot of frustration because there's because the compliance need is just a lot of legal responsibility for the security person with minimal like management support most times. So I think that's like the major risk.
Actively involved in, securing. You're
Yes.
just doing it for compliance.
It's
and
just
you
compliance. So
think
most
that's
times it's
the biggest
documentation
risk.
and
Yeah.
those filling forms and
Oh.
no actual like work.
Yeah, what I'm interested because I'm just I just thought about it that I haven't really read about a cyber attack, a large scale cyber attack on a company here that is based out of Nigeria. I don't know if you've heard of any because we usually hear a lot, overseas where they're breaking into stuff. Maybe it's because our money is, and attackers don't think they'll get as much reward for their effort. I'm just saying it out off the top of my head. Have you read of any cyber attacks on any Nigerian company?
I mean, there are a lot that happen day on day, to be honest. So I think that for cyber attack, it's not about if, it's more of like when, because it will actually happen. It just means that how prepared are you for when those attacks happen? Because they come in small scale. Sometimes people might try to probe your systems, like say try to commit fraud, for example, try to see if they can move money, try to see if your data, they can exfiltrate your data. But it's very common, but we just doesn't make the news in Nigeria. There are lots that happens like on the underground. Most times, the trend I've noticed is they usually report it months or like a year or two after it has happened. So most times people are not aware that these things have happened internally and has affected maybe products that they use. But most times it just gets reported or you just hear about it maybe 1 or 2 years, and that's for people that actually do the research. Most times a lot of those guys make sure that it doesn't make the news, because if it makes the news, reputational damage, financial damage, and
because the only one I've heard of, is individual users coming, especially in the banks, they go there to complain about their money being gone. I'm like, that's easy, but I'm again thinking about why can't we just, I'm a good person, I'm a law-abiding citizen of the country, just let me put that out there. But I'm just thinking about how interesting it would be to just go backdoor and through the database and kind of like just see records and exploit that. And then I'm thinking, at the end of the day, how much would I be able to get off that? Right? Because
you'd be surprised.
I know that there's a lot of money, right? And then I'm also worried about the whole legal ramifications of that, because it is very severe overseas. Again, I don't know why I'm saying overseas. Is this a sign? It is very severe overseas. I don't know much about the law here, and I've not read of any except for this what we call Yahoo here, which is not essentially even done to Nigerian organizations, done so it's more like, except for Yahoo, I've not really seen anybody who was arrested again for cyber fraud that as relating to Nigerian companies. Maybe, as you said, it's not making the news, right? Or is it? And I'm just not reading them.
I mean, there are some that actually do make the news. A lot of them are usually related to insider threats. So, say employees of companies, because they are familiar with what the process is like, and they're familiar with how the system works. It's easier for them to exploit, but most times they usually collaborate with people on the outside. And on the flip side, there are also people that also try to break the system, and they actually do succeed breaking the system. And they are able to get maybe company data or funds out of the system, depending on the type of organization they attack. And for people that get data, for example, if I'm able to say my organization has say 2 million users or like 1 million users, and I'm able to download or get out 500,000 users, I can sell that information to a competitor. Or the easiest part, they'll sell it on the dark web. Anybody that wants access to it, people pay good money for this information, because then it now becomes a situation of identity theft. I can use, if I have your card details, if I have your home address, I can easily impersonate you. I can threaten you and say, okay, I have your information. So there was this health tech incident, ransomware, that occurred, where a company that was providing therapy virtually was hacked. So, and for therapy, you tell your therapist a lot of information about things you're going through. So they hacked the organization. They got the information of all their clientele, their customers.
In this country?
Oh, it's not in this country. It was external. Like Nigerian like attacks hardly make the news. The ones that usually make the news are usually in the finance space as opposed to like other spaces. But in that scenario, they now started using that information to blackmail the users. And a lot of users had to now start paying to ensure that, okay, say for example, I confess to my therapist that, oh, I killed somebody or I was responsible for a big crime. The therapist has to document it for like the process. But that information, if it gets out, and a lot of customers were committing suicide because they didn't want information to get out. Some people were paying off or getting bankrupt. So cyber attacks does have like a lot of impact on people and the organization as well. And there was a big class lawsuit against the organization.
Because I'm realizing now that I don't read a lot of news about my country, which is terrible. Terrible, because I would have sworn there were not that I would have sworn. I knew that I wasn't really paying attention. But since you have actually confirmed that it actually happens and probably would make the news like a couple of years after, even if it did make the news, I should at least have read it once or twice. I haven't read a single one, so I am going to change that. Now on to the next question. What are the security practices you think that engineers should adopt from day one?
Everything can be summarized in secure coding, to be honest. I think that it also could also be linked to SDLC, software development lifecycle, ensuring that from gathering phase, consider security. Don't just think about functionality, because I think that engineers think more about functionality, user experience, and things like that, things that actually can lead to the organization making money. You should also think about the flip side, because I've noticed that when people are building initially, before they go to market, they're thinking about how these products can make money. Where they now come to when they encounter problem is when they're trying to scale, and people are now trying to people are getting to know the product, and people are now like paying attention to what they do. Then they now try to exploit them. Then they now start finding out that they have a lot of loopholes that they didn't consider originally. So I think that they should also always consult like a security person. You might not necessarily be able to afford them, because I understand that you have limited funds at the beginning. You might be able to afford them, but ensure that you also consult them. It might just be like a 30 minutes conversation or 1 hour conversation. They can point you in the right direction to, okay, consider this, because when just to mention this in passing, so for my experience when I was consulting and freelancing, I sort of noticed that for guys that have cloud environments, they typically just set it up, and sometimes their inbound rules and outbound rules are set to all. It means that all the ports you can possibly think of is allowed into your environment. If somebody does as simple as exploiting, I noticed that some of them actually are visually specific for inbound. But in a situation where somebody breaks into your system and your outbound rules are also set to all, it means that your data can easily be exfiltrated from your cloud provider. So I think that's pretty much just consulting them, considering like your API security, considering secure coding. Those are like very important that you take note of.
Okay, now if I wanted to like go into InfoSec, because I also noticed that you have a lot of certificates and courses under your belt. I think it's almost 50 of them.
I'm training and certificates. I'm not up to 50 please. I just arrived.
No, I mean not certificates per se, but I mean courses, at least they give you like a certificate of completion in a way.
Like 30-ish.
Are you sure it's not more than 30? Let's leave it at 30 then. If I were going into InfoSec, what skills should I learn now?
Okay, so if you are starting out your journey, say freshly, I would give the same advice that I got when I was about to start, was learn networking first. So a lot of networking courses that we have now is based on like the traditional model, which is servers, routers, the likes communicating with each other. What that does for you, it can be a very tedious process to learn, because I also didn't want to learn it in the beginning.
Me too.
Because it was a lot of information to take in at once, and because my background wasn't in the computer like side of things, it was like tedious for me. But like because I took the advice, I didn't really see the importance of it till like 1 year, 2 years down the line, when I now had to assess a cloud environment, for example. Cloud models are actually built on like the traditional model of communication, the traditional OSI model. But understanding how data flows from one end to the other, pretty much just gives it like a very good foundation in cybersecurity. Because now, if you are dealing with products and systems and policies within an organization, they are usually built on that model of networking. Because how are you able to assess a cloud environment, for example, or evaluate a product, or understand how data moves from point A to point B? Networking actually just gives you that understanding of how things work, and you understand how applications actually like operate on a day. So networking is actually will be my first touch point. Then I'll actually advise you to try and learn about cybersecurity, what cybersecurity is about. You can take an introductory course. There are different. Google, Cisco has one as well. Different providers or different. Professor Mesa has a few. Those different people that talk about how cybersecurity works. Then you now can now delve into the different subsets of cybersecurity, information security. So say GRC, cloud security, SOC, Red Hat, maybe like a pen testing and the likes. So there's also security engineering. They are more like identity and access management. There are different subsets now, because now we're moving from traditional to cloud. So there are different subsets. So read about all of those different subsets. I usually don't advise people to specialize in the beginning, because what specializing does for you in the beginning is it boxes you sometimes. And if you're not going to be in that industry, you're not going to be in that job except you want to forever. So if you have to move to a different job, you have to be able to be flexible to actually adapt to what the systems are. So I usually advise that understand what these different subsets are, understand the ones that you have interest in. You can then now start building, but also have additional knowledge about the different subsets. So in a scenario where you have to adjust, say for example, I'm working in the GRC space originally, and my role was GRC related. If I'm interviewing for a role that is more technical, that requires me to understand how a SIEM works, how to conduct penetration testing, I might not have 100% of the knowledge, but all I might need for that role is maybe 20% knowledge. So that 20% makes it easy for me to adopt or just adjust. Then maybe when you're now growing in like you're on the career paths or your career ladder, might not decide that, okay, I want to be a data protection officer and I want to focus on that. But that way you have the experience of the other different sectors. So just in case you find yourself in that space, it's easy for you to adjust. So I would say understand these different subsects, have the knowledge about them. You can decide to say, okay, I want to focus on this now, but still be very open-minded to learn other parts as well. So one mistake I found is people try to focus on a niche too early. So it becomes a problem where when you're trying to apply for jobs, because you're focused on that niche, sometimes it might become very tasking for you to get a job in that niche, because it might require a different niche. So that means that's why I would usually advise flexibility.
When you mentioned the subset, because I was thinking again that when you mentioned data protection officer and information security officer, they just seem the same to me, right? But they do separate things.
Yeah, they do like different jobs. I mean, you're
securing info, you're protecting data. Is it not the same thing?
So data protection is now more focused on protecting the data. If you're a processor or a controller of data, so protecting the data that you deal with on a day-to-day. So say, for example, you are
Isn't that what you just said, information security officer?
Yeah, so information security now maybe now extends to more strategy, governance,
and all
risk
that.
and compliance.
So you're like a bigger subset of cybersecurity, and data is just...
something like that. So data protection now, you're now focused on ensuring that those data that you have within your control is you have proper controls. I think the important part of data protection is you have to ensure that your users know their rights as data users. I'm forgetting what the name is, but they have to know their rights. So you also have to communicate with them what their rights is. You also have to be readily available to say when these data subjects want to exercise their rights. You're also like responsible for that. So it's a niche, but it's actually a very big niche, because now in Nigeria, if you're not protecting the rights of your subjects. You can be fined. They can stop you from operating. So it's a big niche that's actually growing at the moment.
And what about certifications? Do you think they helped you get a job, or did you take them at the time because you wanted to increase your knowledge and skills, or was you just wanted to get a job? And did they help?
So when I took them originally, it was maybe a quest for knowledge. I wanted to know like what these different like subsects are about, and what these different niches are about. And because our field is heavily you have to be sure that this person knows what they're doing, because if I give you a job, you are responsible for securing that particular system or that process. Certification, what certification does for you is it can get your foot into the door, because it's a proof to show that, oh, this person has actually gone through the process of learning this and they have this. But certificates are just a proof to show that I've done this. But there's now the flip side of it, and that now says you have to prove that you actually know this and you actually understand this process. So certificates on your CV can actually get you into the interview. But if they're actually asking you like a technical question, like how do you handle this, you should be able to like prove back that knowledge that you have. So did I take it originally? It was because I actually wanted to know more. It was an added advantage for me to like getting interviews and having conversations, opening the doors for me. And what was the last question you mentioned? You asked one more question. I do remember it.
No, I think you already covered it, because I asked if they helped you get a job and why you took them, and you've answered both. Yeah. We're talking about tech skills a lot now. I want to know which soft skills have helped you the most in your career.
So skills, I think the top that comes to mind is how do I phrase it now? But it means people relation skills. So ensuring that you have good relationships with people and you know how to communicate issues and like the need for maybe items or things that you need them to do. So say for example in security space, your biggest ops are usually like the engineering guys or like the product guys. So you see in whatever organization you're working in, there's usually like a clash between both of them. Say, security says, we need to do this, product is pushing back, engineering is pushing back. But I think that's understanding how to deal with people. And also having a personal relationship is very good. So that way, I can instead of maybe sending you an email, I can just call you and say, how far my guy? Okay, I've noticed this and this and this. Please, I need your help to actually fix it. That way, it's easier for them to actually accept you. So having like a foundational relationship with the person is also very important. I think that's also communication. Communication is also a very big one, because being able to communicate what the problem is and what the solution is makes it easy for both parties, because you understand what you need from them, and they're able to like help you carry it out in due time as well. I think that working with management too is very good. Understanding how to work with key stakeholders in an organization is also very important, because you most times need stakeholders to help you sign off on projects or policies that you need to get out. They're very important. So understanding how to communicate with them and communicate the need, because most times management usually understands ones and zeros. What's the financial impact? What does it mean for the business? So understanding how to communicate what it means for the business is also very important. I think those two top: people relation, communication, then relationship with like key management, so key stakeholders in an organization.
That's good. Because for me, I like to think of myself as a people person sometimes, but I don't think I am exactly. Especially when I work, I like when we leave work and have time to chat. Then I'm a people person, but when I'm working, I am not a people person. Leave me the hell alone. Just leave me alone. And I think that's why this show came to be, because I just wanted to have a conversation outside of work as well. Thank you so much for answering all my questions today. So I want to round up now with a fun game. Did you prepare your 2 truths in life for me so that I can guess which one?
Okay.
I'm going to be like the hacker now to try and figure out which one is the lie. So hit me.
Okay. 2 truths, 1 lie. I love chicken and turkey. 2, is I love road trips. 3 is I'm related to Lewis Hamilton.
I feel like that Lewis Hamilton one is it's too obvious for it to be.
Okay,
I mean, it's very obvious that I'm
take your time.
related, as in, ancestry. Is that what you mean? You might be related by, maybe you're following him on Instagram.
It's all relations. We're all cousins.
So, you love cars. You mentioned that before. You mentioned you love cars, but do you love taking them on road trips? I mean, road trips and cars, Lewis. You love cars. That's Lewis Hamilton. Road trips. No, the only one is chicken and turkey now. But who doesn't love? I mean, I understand not liking chicken, but everybody loves a good turkey.
I like that. This is I'm enjoying this.
So I'm trying to. I mean, the most obvious word is Lewis Hamilton, but it's just going to be too obvious. Or should I keep it simple and just, nah? I'm going to be very angry because I'm a sore loser. I'm going to be very angry if it is the Lewis Hamilton one. I did not pick that. I will be very angry. So let's do. You love chicken and turkey. That's the lie.
Okay, so I have a confession. So I think I did 1 truth and 2 lies.
Oh.
It was after I said it, I realized.
Wait, was when I said the truth?
I mean, that was the lie. Sorry.
I don't need to hear anymore. I don't need to hear anymore. What was the second lie?
Oh, I'm related to Lewis Hamilton.
Can you imagine?
I mean, we can in the real sense of things, we're all cousins.
Oh God. But the point is, I won this one. Yes, I'm holding on to that. Thank you very much. So thank you for coming on the show again. It's been delightful to have Delight on the show. I mean, I just could not help myself. I'm sure you've heard that a couple of times.
Yeah.
You're very delightful to have on the show. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. I hope you had a great time as I did. I hope to see you again on the next episode. But before then, if you enjoyed it, don't forget to share to people like you who are also interested in conversations like this. Watch on YouTube, share to friends and family and your loved ones or colleagues, whichever people you want to share to. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Off the Terminal as well. Have a lovely time. See you next time. Bye bye.